All right, guys, so President Trump, former President Trump, is becoming more and more unhinged by the day. He went on Truth Social, a.k.a. budget dollar store ass Twitter, and he said the following. So now it comes out conclusively that the FBI buried the Hunter Biden laptop story before the election, knowing that if they didn't, quote, Trump would have easily won the 2020 presidential election. Let me pause there. I don't know who he's quoting here. I think he's just making this up in his own mind and putting quotes around it. He says, this is massive fraud and election interference at a level never seen before in our country. Remedy, declare the rightful winner, or, and this would be the minimal solution, declare the 2020 election irreparably compromised and have a new election immediately. So, let's just call this what this is. Like, 53 IQ level sheer idiocy. On every level. So, let's take the claims apart one by one here. The thing he's referring to about the FBI and the Hunter Biden laptop is Mark Zuckerberg going on Joe Rogan's podcast and basically saying, hey, the FBI reached out to us and said, careful, we're getting news that there's going to be some Russian disinformation dump happening soon, so be vigilant. And that was their way of saying, like, hey, make sure you curate this stuff and or censor this stuff because we don't want there to be, election interference from a hostile foreign power. That's what the FBI did. Now, on that specific claim, the FBI has no right whatsoever to go prod social media oligarchs to censor at their behest. I would argue that's deeply against the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. They have no right to be a Ministry of Truth or a disinformation board. No right whatsoever. Now, Twitter just flat out censored that story. What happened on Facebook is they limited the spread of that story, so they sort of algorithmically shadow banned or limited the spread of that story. So on that specific point, yeah, the FBI shouldn't have done that. They need to get the hell out of, meddling around in journalism and on social media. However, the idea that, well, if this story was released, Trump definitely would have won the election, that is totally made up. Joe Biden won by 7 million votes. Joe Biden won with over 300 electoral college votes. This election was not about Hunter Biden. The Republicans were desperately trying to make that a thing, but really this was a referendum on Trump and how terribly he was handling COVID. That's what the main thrust of this election was. So even if it was released, and I think it should be released, I don't think it would have changed the outcome of the election much at all. Now, by the way, if he's being consistent in his standard here, he would also say, in 2016 when James Comey came out, like, very soon before the election and said, we've reopened our investigation into Hillary Clinton, he would say, well, that was also illegal election meddling and interference. So maybe we should redo the 2016 election to give Hillary a chance again. Now, of course, he'd never say that because he's a selfish, narcissistic sociopath, right? But if he was holding the same standard, he would say that because there is this thing that happens in the U.S. where apparently 90 days before an election, stuff like that is sort of brushed to the side. Like, you're not going to hear much more about the cases that are against Trump because there's this tradition of, like, well, you don't want to impact the election like 90 days out, within 90 days out. So, for the FBI to do that, even though, again, I don't think that would have changed the result of that election at all. But, it's something that if he was holding a consistent standard, he would say they shouldn't have done that to Hillary Clinton either. Now, in terms of having another election or just declaring him the rightful winner, that is like literal dictatorship shit. Let's overturn the results of an election that has been proven time and time again to be legitimate. Over 60 court cases have verified this. You had the Arizona audit where Biden won by more votes than we thought he won by on election day. For Trump to just say, well, just reinstall me in office, that's total psycho stuff. That is like the third world banana republic, just total nonsense. Like, it's astonishing he would even say this. This is like a parody of Donald Trump. It's like he's losing brain cells by the day. And the idea of, like, well, at least redo the election? Are you fucking kidding me? Bro, get over it. It's been so long now. And there's no legal precedent for this. There's no path that you could even potentially take that would allow for such a situation to unfold. So this is just pure copium, dog. I mean, this is truly psycho stuff. Now, you haven't heard, not a single Republican has come out and backed up Trump on this, because even they know when, okay, this is just like way too far. So what we're seeing here is Donald Trump going full dictator and also going full, like, I'm President Alex Jones. Now, I want to, in the context of this story, I also want to show you this. Alex Jones talking about what the globalist leftists plan to do in the next 71 days. Watch.
In the next 71 days, we're going to see some very violent fireworks. I would predict racially motivated mass shootings, bombings, poisonings, attacks on power supplies being blamed on the right wing. They intend to bring in a full dictatorship.
Okay, the deep, deep irony of Alex Jones saying this, at the same time, Donald Trump is literally calling for him to be installed as a dictator, or to redo the election, of which that's not a thing and you can't do. So as Donald Trump is out there, you know, basically waving the flag saying, I am a dictator and I want to be a dictator and I want to be just implemented back in office, even though I lost the election, Alex Jones is saying it's the left who are going to go full dictator. I mean, this is total psycho stuff. Now, the other thing, he talks about all these attacks that are coming and it's going to be the leftist globalists who are doing it. Well, hold on. What is Occam's razor here? That the left would do these attacks and blame them on the right, or that the right is, you know, the far-right base, the Trump supporters, have worked themselves up so much that a small percentage of them would do violence because they think, you know, their dear leader is being prosecuted unfairly by the FBI. We've already seen an attempted mass shooting at an FBI building. We've already seen somebody drive their car into the congressional barricade and then kill themselves in front of it. I got news for you, Alex. This wasn't Antifa. This wasn't a bunch of Bernie supporters. This was right-wingers, without a doubt. There's no doubt about it. So now he's trying to preempt this by saying, see, I told you, any attack is by definition the left doing it. Even though Occam's razor would be, if any, you know, nominal right-wing attacks happen, it's the right. Psycho.
In the next 71 days, and we are all strapped to this thing. This is such a dangerous time. And I would advise the globalists who are mid-level that think they're about to have a leftist revolution. The globalists...
Their leftist globalist is a fucking contradiction in terms. You know who the elites are, Alex? They are hardcore capitalists. That's what they are. And they love shaking everybody down for money and rigging the system and price gouging and remaining captains of industry and snuffing out competition. The idea of leftist globalists. Really? So the people who effectively run the world are what? Calling for the workers to own the means of production? The workers to seize the means of production? The people who run the world are calling for, like, universal health care and free child care? Fuck out of here, man. This is so stupid.
Don't actually plan at the higher levels to have that. They plan on having a civil war that brings down America, and you'll be the fall guy.
Right. So it's the left that wants a civil war that's going to bring down America, when, again, there were endless threats of civil war after the FBI was correctly investigating Trump. Please. I got one more from Alex Jones here. This is him responding directly to what Trump said about, put me in as president again or redo the election.
But then he does something like this, and it makes me love him more.
Of course.
Trump's come out and called for a new election with the FBI.
I want you to stop and think, what if Hillary Clinton, after she had lost the election, what if she called for a redo a few years into Trump's term? Or she said, you know what, just take him out and put me in. What if she said that a few years into Trump's term? What the fuck would a guy like Alex Jones say? She would say, look, this is the open conspiracy. This is the elitist globalist cabal. These are the dictators. These are the wannabe emperors. They are the fascists. That's what we're watching. And he would have been correct if Hillary did that.
Admitting that Zuckerberg told the truth on Joe Rogan last week, right down the street from our offices, that they went and ordered them to cover that up for the election. The FBI responded today and said, yeah, we did that. It's no big deal. We do that all the time. So they election meddled with Joe Biden being a Chinese agent and pedophilia and crack pipes and all the rest of the money payments from Ukraine and the rest of it.
So he loves to talk about all these potential foreign deals that Joe Biden was involved in and Hunter Biden was involved in. You know what? That's fair game. It's fair game to talk about that corruption, and I talk about it all the time. Has Alex Jones ever said a goddamn word about the $2 billion that Saudi Arabia gave Jared Kushner? Now, did they give Jared Kushner that money just because they like his face or they agree with his stance on abortion? No, they gave him that money because they are buying him. It is a massive conflict of interest. It is rank corruption. It is buying favors. And this is why Trump, when he was in office, gave them a multi-billion-dollar weapons deal. This is why he looked the other way when they murdered Jamal Khashoggi and didn't make a peep. These guys are cucks to the Saudis. They have totally sold out to the Saudis. And Alex Jones will never say a word about that because he's a fucking partisan hack.
And Zuckerberg covers his ass because he knows it's coming out and says the FBI told him not to allow it on Facebook. And then they run headlines everywhere that Trump's calling for insurrection and violence when he's not.
He literally just said, redo the election or just install me as president. He literally just said that. He just said that. And also, he was sending some threatening letters to Merrick Garland, like, hey, man, the temperature's really high. How do we turn down the temperature? I wouldn't want things to go crazy here. That's him. That's a wink and a nod to, like, hey, if you come after me, I got ways of coming back at you, motherfucker. I can get my people in the street.
You can see what they're getting ready to do. False flags.
No, please.
And this would be the minimum.
Dude, this is the false flag. The thing he wants Trump to do is the globalist, elitist conspiracy. Just install me as president because I feel like I won, even though all the empirical evidence says the opposite.
Solution, declare the 2020 election irrevocably compromised and have a new election immediately. Yeah, the answer is a new election, and I agree with Trump.
Of course you do.
And if they rehold it, I'll vote for him because...
By the way, this is also him cucking to Trump and bending the knee and genuflecting because he said that thing about how he loves DeSantis. And his audience was fleeing him. And so he's like, no, Trump is actually great. Trump's awesome. I'd vote for him. I love him. He's the best.
He's light years better. It's not a lesser of two evils. It's that they stole it from him, and we need to rehab the election. And they're trying to say it's terrorist to call for a new election. So this is just bombshell.
Anyway, there you go. So Donald Trump is going full Alex Jones, and Alex Jones is going full Donald Trump. He's claiming there's this globalist leftist conspiracy as they are openly plotting the conspiracy. They are saying throw out a legitimate election. They are saying redo an election or just put Trump in and declare he's dictator or emperor. That's what they want. So, you know, they are the devil that they're trying to expose. It is them. They should look in the mirror. But this is psycho stuff. The fact that Trump came out and tweeted that, I mean, it just shows he's gotten so much more deranged as he's been out of office for so long, and he's listening to the likes of Michael Flynn and Sidney Powell and all these absolute losers. You know, Trump can't even get a good lawyer at this point because they all know, like, he's sort of fighting a losing battle, and it would tarnish whatever their respective legacies are. And so what's he doing? He's going further and further into the psychosphere, with far-right kooks. And so there's a great example of it right here. Really, really wacky stuff.